Good, and we've still got people coming in. So great, thanks everybody for joining us today. You can see I've got Greg Burcher with the U.S. Forest Service. He's our bird expert. So welcome back for the third time, Greg Burcher. We really appreciate your expert knowledge and answering all these questions. I would not be willing to take on these kids' questions.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here. Glad I can help out.
Yeah, right. We need you.
I hope I don't get stumped by too many questions this time.
Oh, that's always good for you, right? You're not learning if you can't answer something.
Sometimes I just don't know.
Yep. So today, what we've got is I Am a Duck, which is a great story. So thanks to Akiva and Thomas from New York and Illinois for joining us. And then we're going to watch a short video about ducks. We're going to learn a little bit about ducks first. And then we're going to do a little bitty science experiment before we turn it over to Greg to answer your questions. So I am going to actually turn our cameras off, Greg, so that I can we can come back later, and so I can actually see my screen a little bit better. All right, so everybody, this week is Duck Week. And as you know, we are working our way through the World Migratory Bird Day, Birds Connect Our World species. So can you tell me which of these birds is a duck? Which one on this poster is a duck? Where do you think it is? Hey, Kipton from Canada. Which bird is the duck? I've got one answer. Very correct. I don't know if you guys can see everybody else's answers. But yes, you are right, Pranjal, that the duck is at the bottom right of the poster. And we're not talking about the northern pintail, which is what this is, because I couldn't find a book about a northern pintail. So this week, we're going to be just talking about a duck. I don't even know what species this duck is, but the book is very general. And so we're going to talk about what is a duck, read I Am a Duck, and learn how ducks stay dry. All right, so what makes a duck a duck? Does anybody of this age group know who these ducks are? Who are these ducks? Any ideas about who these ducks are? And again, for those of you who've just come in, if you can put your kids' names, ages, and where you're from. All right, somebody got Donald Duck on the right, and who is the duck on the left? Who is a duck on the left? Even some of you parents might know. So yes, we've got Daffy on the left and Donald on the right. So what makes them ducks? What characteristics do they have that make them ducks? So let's take a look. Here's a duck. This is a mallard. This is a very, very common duck. In fact, one of our most common ducks. And glad to have you all on. I'm going to welcome a few more people. Julia, who's an environmental educator. So see, you guys are joined by adults too, and Ella H4 from Oregon. So all you people new to the program today, what makes a duck a duck? Tell me what some of the characteristics are here. The mallard, this male mallard, has a green head, but not all ducks do. And so they have a certain characteristics that they have to help them because they spend so much time in the water. So first of all, like the Bulls family says, they have webbed feet, and those webbed feet help them to swim in the water and to move not only on the surface of the water, but for the ducks that are swimming underwater, for them to actually move underwater as well. They're kind of like, you know, if you've ever used those fins when you go swimming, it's like having those. It helps you move a lot better. They also have a flat beak, most of them, and they usually don't have teeth, but sometimes they might have some little parts to their beak that look like teeth, but they're not actually teeth. And then they have strong eye muscles, and these help them to see when they're underwater. So those are three of the characteristics that you can see when you look at a duck. There are lots of other characteristics that help ducks, that help them to float, that help them to swim, that help them to fly, then help them to stay dry. And what you notice about this mallard is look on the belly of the mallard. You see all these drops of water. Those drops of water aren't soaking into the duck. So let's think about why, and we'll go later and talk a little bit more about that. And yeah, the Saban family, they do have a beak. And Pranjal, good idea on the waterproof skin, but it's actually the feathers, right? So the feathers actually help them to stay dry. And we'll talk about that later. So now I just have some short questions for you. So given the little characteristics that we talked about, which of these birds are ducks? Which are ducks and which are not ducks? Some birds look like ducks, but they aren't ducks. So we have A, B, C, D, and E, and I'm going to start with A. So is A a duck? Is A a duck? Yes or no? It's just a yes or no question. Super simple on A. Yes or no? All right, we've got some yeses coming in. So you are correct. A is a northern shoveler. It is a duck. You can see its huge flat bill and it has webbed feet. So two characteristics that you can easily see. All right, how about B? How about B? Is B a duck? Is B a duck? I've got a lot of no's. Boy, you guys are smart. Why did you think it wasn't a duck? Was it the toes that gave it away? That's a good one. It definitely has these big long toes, which is one of the things that helps it to stand on this lily pad. It kind of distributes the weight so it doesn't sink in. All right, how about C? Is C a duck? This one should be easy. This one should be easy. Is C a duck? Yes, everybody's got C. In fact, I just showed it to you. And how about D? Is D a duck? All right, good job, you guys. No, why didn't you think it was a duck? Why isn't it a duck? It definitely doesn't have a very flat bill. And it's got toes again. So kind of like B, it's got toes. This is a coot. This is a coot. How about E? How about E? Is E a duck? All right, you guys are too quick. All right, everybody's got it. E is a duck. It's a beautiful wood duck. It is a lovely duck. It is a funny duck because look at it perched up there on a deck. This is the duck that nests in holes in trees, and the little ducklings have to jump out to get to the water below. So it's an amazing duck. All right, good job, you guys. We're going to read the book, and then we're going to watch the video about ducks swimming and do a little science experiment, and then we're going to let Greg answer your questions. So I'm a duck. I think this is the cutest duck I've ever seen. And again, they never say what kind of duck it is. So maybe you can think about that if you want to actually try to identify it. When I was just an egg, I'm told, I left my nest and rolled and rolled. Take a close look and see if you can find the nest and see if you can find where the egg rolls out. You can see the nest all the way on the left side of the page and then plopping into the water. My mother quacked a frightened quack, then dived in deep and brought me back. Now I'm a duck who's scared to go in the pond or lake, and so I cannot swim, and that is bad. A landlocked duck is very sad. My brothers swimming in a line shout, "Come on in, the water's fine." But I might sink and end up drowned, never ever to be found. My friend Big Frog told me today, "I promise that you'll be okay. Just slide in fast, don't even think. You're a duck, and ducks don't sink." I take a walk beside the pond, then waddle just a bit beyond to talk to Owl, who's very wise, and ask him, "What do you advise?" He studies me. "Too-it, too. Think about what you can do. You're a duck. Use common sense and try to get some confidence." It's true. If I could know for sure that I could swim, I'd feel secure. I'll find a puddle. It will be the perfect practice place for me. Oops, maybe not. I puddle swim all day and night. It's nice to swim by pale moonlight. My mother brings me out a snack. She dries my feathers, rubs my back. The pond is waiting there below. It's whispering, "Come on, let's go." But even though I'm well prepared, I'm really, really, really scared. Frog sitting on his big flat stone. If you're afraid to try alone, I'll hold your wing and dive in too to make it easier for you. I'd love to have you help me through it, but I'm the one who has to do it. I pause, a quiver for a minute, then hold my beak and flop right in it. My friends are joyous. Frog is too. Owl calls out, "To-wit, to-woo." My mother's jumping up and down and blowing kisses all around. I'm swimming. Oh my gosh, I find that ducks are perfectly designed. I was wrong to ever think a well-made duck like me could sink. I do the backstroke. There are cheers so loud they almost hurt my ears. The other ducks shout, "Way to go," as I'm backstroking to and fro. We swim together in a line. We're doing absolutely fine. No one says my stroke is strange or asks if I will ever change. Wasn't it fantastic luck that I grew up to be a duck? And that is the end of the story. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a little bit about ducks and how they stay dry, and then we're going to watch the video. So how do ducks float? First of all, they have these feathers, and the feathers actually trap air, and the air helps them to stay light and to float. And then they have these air sacs in their body, and the air sacs also help them to float. And then they have hollow bones, and those all help them to float. They also have something called a uropygial gland. Huge word, but all it means is that you can see at the base of the tail, on the rump actually, there's a gland, and when you see a bird take its beak back to that area, it's taking the oil. It's taking the oil from the gland, and then it puts it through the feathers, and that oil helps to waterproof the feathers. So first of all, I want to watch the video. So I'm going to pull this down and pull up that video. Let me know if you can't see it. Can everyone see the video I have from Cody that he cannot see it? Let me know if you can't see it. All right. Hopefully everybody could see that. It's pretty amazing how those ducks actually swim underwater. And what did you notice about how they use their feet? How do they use their webbed feet? What ideas do you have about that? How are they using their webbed feet to help them underwater? Any ideas? I don't see it. Oh, okay. I see the webbed feet may help them to move faster or to accelerate. That's good. Think about how you use your feet when you go underwater. It helps you stay down, doesn't it? Those ducks are trying to feed off the bottom of the water. And so they're paddling hard with their feet to help them stay down. Pushing the water around from the Hildreth family. Yes, exactly. Good job. So we're going to do a quick little experiment here. I'm going to turn my camera back on. And I have Chuyu helping me again today. Remember, she helped with the origami birds the other day. So we're going to do this little experiment that kind of gives you an idea about how birds' feathers stay waterproofed. So we have one feather that is an oily feather. And this is an oily feather like a duck would have. We put an oil on it, kind of like what the duck would have taken from its gland, and it would have preened and put it on the feather. And so now we're going to dip it into some water. And then we're going to show you how much water comes off onto the towel. Like, does it soak in the water, or does the water stay off of the feather because it has the oil? So we're going to take the water and we're going to dip the feather in it. And we're going to pull it out and put it on the towel like this. And you can see that because it has the oil on it, the towel's pretty dry. There's a little bit of water on it, but not very much. All right, thanks to you. Now I'm going to take the feather that has no oil on it, and I'm going to dip it in the water. You can do this at home too and give it a try. Dip it in the water, and then I'm going to take the paper towel and put the feather on it and show you how much water that feather has on it. So it has a lot of water on it, if you can see that. So it's actually soaking in the water because I'm getting the water off the feather, where this feather with the oil doesn't have any water on it to get onto the paper towel. So just a really simple science experiment. You can try it at home, show it to your family, and show them what you learned about feathers today. So thanks, everybody. It's now your chance to ask Dr. Greg your questions about ducks. And I can unmute you and I can put you on camera. Greg, you want to get on camera again?
Sure. And if I'm stumped, I can look really puzzled.
Yeah, there you go. Any questions that you have for Dr. Greg? Okay, from the Alvarado family, Ryan, who's 3 years old, asks, how do ducks hear? That's a good question, Greg, because, you know, when you look at a duck, I mean, where are the ears?
So basically, ducks have ears just like we do. The thing is, our ears stick out and their ears don't. So you can see the eye, but you can't see the ear, and the ear is just hiding behind the feathers. So ducks can hear perfectly well. They go quack, 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 and there's no reason for a duck to quack if other ducks can't hear them. So they hear perfectly well. It's just that they hide their ears behind their feathers right up near their eyes. So it's kind of just like us. You can see our eyes and you can see our ears. You can see a duck's eyes. You can't see the duck's ears, even though they're in a very similar place behind the eyes.
Yeah, so just right behind it. You'd have to pull all the feathers back to see the hole where the ear is.
Yep.
Pranjal wants to know if any ducks eat fish.
So yes, so that duck you're seeing there's a mallard. It does not eat fish. It eats vegetation primarily and insects sometimes. But there are other ducks called mergansers, and their favorite food to eat is fish. And you can tell because their beak is a very different shape. And it has those tooth-like things that you talked about, Sue, that aren't really teeth, but they look like it so they can grab the fish and hold on to it. So mergansers are ducks that eat fish.
Oh, here's a good one. They're all good, but here's a good one. Is a goose a duck? They also have webbed feet.
So that is a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up myself if you didn't. So ducks and geese and swans are all closely related to each other. And so in essence, a goose and a swan, they're just ducks with long necks. So no, they're not ducks, but they're very closely related to ducks. And together they're all called waterfowl. So ducks, geese, and swans are all waterfowl.
Okay, and London from Manitoba wants to know, what do their beaks help with?
So the most important reason for a beak is to catch your food. So the ducks all need something to catch your food. So a beak of a duck is a lot like our mouth, but look, they don't have any hands. So the beak of a duck has to be more agile than our mouth is so they can catch the food and eat it both. And if you look at that duck, you can see two holes near the base of the bill, and those holes are for breathing. So they also use their beak for breathing, just like we use our mouth for breathing. But that's really a duck's nose attached to its bill. So a duck's bill is very, very important to a duck.
And Carson,
you can say bill or beak, either one is fine.
And Carson wants to know if you can feel the oil on the feathers. I know I can feel it on our feather. It's very oily, but can you, if you were to find a duck feather, would you be able to feel the oil on it?
Totally. I mean, you wouldn't, it's not separate from the feather, but a feather with oil is very, very slick compared to a feather without oil. So yes, you really can tell the oil on a duck's feather.
And Grady 7 wants to know, how many baby ducks are born at a time? Or does each mom duck only have one baby every time?
So as far as I know, all the ducks have lots of eggs. And so it's not one number, but it could be anywhere from 6 to 20. And it varies a little bit species by species. Some ducks lay more eggs than others. I'm sharing again.
There you are.
So, there we go. So wood ducks lay a whole lot of eggs. They have that nest in a tree hole, and they can lay up to 20 eggs in the tree. And usually not that many young survive. So they lay a whole lot of extra eggs in case some of the baby ducks don't make it. Then there'll still be plenty of ducklings to grow up to be adult ducks.
All right, here's the Garrett family they were in the Chesapeake Bay and said that they were watching some cormorants yesterday. And they were the cormorants were sitting on a piling, and they were flapping their wings and opening their beaks. Were they too hot? Why were they doing that?
So they open their beaks because they're too hot, but they flap their wings and they'll sit with their wings open because they don't have as much oil as a duck does. And so cormorants get their feathers wet. And I think one reason they get their feathers wet is because it makes them easier to stay underwater. You saw how hard the ducks had to work to stay underwater. For cormorants, it's easier because they let their feathers get wet. And then when they come up out of their water, they spread their wings to dry them.
Here's one from the...
One more answer. When you see the cormorants with their beaks open, a lot of times they move the skin underneath their beaks, and that's definitely to cool off in hot weather.
Cooler flutter. I have a question from the Burcher family. For how long?
Leah and Ava and Harrison?
I think so. They didn't get their name this time, but there they are. How long can a duck hold its breath and stay underwater?
So that's a good question. I don't know the answer for sure, but they stay underwater a long, long time. So I know it's over a minute. So much longer than a human can do it. And it's very important for them because most of them are finding their food underwater. So the longer they can stay underwater, the better it is for them. But when they come back up, they really need that breath of air very badly.
All right. Any other questions from you guys? We've answered a lot. While we see if you have any more questions, Lisa Garrett, the Garrett family says yes, for the cormorants, that's what they were doing. So thanks.
So I have a request of our listeners. I would like to ask our listeners, please don't feed bread to the ducks. And don't feed bread to any birds. Birds are like dogs. They shouldn't have human foods at all. They have their own foods that they're specialized for, and bread is not good for any ducks at all, or geese, or swans for that matter. If you really need to feed foods, corn is okay, but ducks don't need us to feed them. They have their own foods, and you can go to a duck pond and enjoy the ducks without having to feed them, please.
That's really helpful to know. And I was also a little bit worried and was going to bring this up when I saw the video. And I wasn't really sure what was at the bottom of this pond that they were showing. And it almost looked like bits of plastic popcorn. I don't know if I can pull that back up. You know, those peanuts that come in packaging. And so it's important to know that plastics don't break down. So if plastics don't make it to the garbage and they tend to go into waterways, then you can imagine that a duck on the bottom of wherever it's feeding wouldn't know the difference between maybe the food and the plastic and would end up eating a lot of plastics. So that's another thing to be careful about.
So, you know, a lot of times when people go to see ducks, they bring bread with them. Maybe they could bring a plastic bag with them and pick up some of the trash that people have left behind. And that'd be really helpful for the ducks.
Excellent. I do have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
I like this one from the Saban family. Are baby ducks born with webbed feet and beaks?
Yes. Now, the one thing they have is their beaks look a little bit different as they're being born because they have a little bit of an egg tooth on them. It's not really a tooth, but they have a little bit of a thing on them that helps them poke out of the egg. And so their beak looks a little bit different, but their feet are fully webbed when they're born because right after they're born, the wood duck jumps out of its nest right down into water, and the other ducks walk immediately to water, and they start swimming within minutes after they're born. So they have to have those webbed feet right away.
And the Alvarado family says that they live on the water in Maryland and they do have ducklings already. And the Hildreth family was asking, how can we help ducks around us? So I think we gave you 2 ideas. Don't feed bread and use less plastics. Try not to use plastics. They don't degrade. And
okay, another thing to do is keeping your dog on a leash. So it's really fun to take your dog on a walk, but sometimes I see dogs that are chasing ducks around, and that's really scary for the ducks. And so keeping your pets under control is really helpful for ducks.
definitely. And we don't realize it. And I think some people think their dogs are having fun and the ducks don't mind, but they do. From the Butcher family again, how many ducks can you find in North America?
So there's 50 species of ducks in North America and 150 different species all over the world. So imagine all that variety. Lots and lots of different kinds of ducks.
And they also want to know, is under the water the best place for ducks to find food?
Yes, now there are some ducks and some geese that'll actually come onto land and eat grass and eat other plants on the land, but for almost all species of ducks, they do much better finding their food in the water. And I wanted to get back to a question we had before we even started the webinar, and that's the difference between ruddy ducks and mallards in terms of how they work underwater. So you showed a video of all those ducks swimming underwater, but you didn't show mallards because mallards can't swim underwater. Mallards keep their bottoms above the water, and they just dip into the water and grab their food close to the surface. So not all ducks can swim. Some ducks just dabble, but we call them dabbling ducks, because they keep their butt above the water while they stick their beaks below the water.
Exactly. And I should have put a picture up of them tipping and showing their butts above the water.
Yeah, they're also called tip-up ducks, which is another good name for them. And geese and swans are the same way. They'll tip up. And that's why they have long necks, is they can get closer to the bottom of a pond without having to swim underwater.
Ah, excellent. All right, everyone. Any more questions from you? So again, next week, we're going to go to the zoo and talk about what zoos do for birds and read a story about an emu. So we'll be excited to have that virtual trip to a zoo. And also, again, we have bird camp that we're starting based on popular demand. And that will start the third week in June and go through the end of July. So 8 weeks of programming with materials for 2 sessions, one for 4 to 7-year-olds and one for 8 to 11-year-olds. And kind of like these programs, we'll be bringing in experts like Dr. Greg. We'll also have activities. Each participant will get a package 3 times during the program that will have some materials for them to use during the next 2 weeks between each session. So if you're interested in that, I'll be sending it to everybody who's joined the call today, as well as others who've been on in the past, and we hope you'll join us for that as well. So thanks. I don't see any more questions, Dr. Greg. So you did great.
It's good to talk to everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Great to see new faces and great to see those who came back again. We appreciate it and love having you.